Welcome to Metaphysical Soul Speak. I'm your host, Elena Fox Starks. Hey guys, I hope that whenever in time you're listening to this and wherever you are on the globe, that you're taking these moments to nurture yourself, regardless of what your needs are at the moment. If you're hungry, you should go eat. If you are stiff and sore, you probably should go get a massage or sit in a hot tub, or maybe just go to sleep and rest a little bit. I have been resting myself for 2 days. I had to cancel plans with my friend. We've had a couple weeks of planning this, and I couldn't get out of bed. I was so sick. I can't believe I'm sick the way that I am. I've had a fever. And it started like about 5 or 6 days ago, maybe about 4 days. I can't remember, honestly. I'm so out of it. But about 4 days ago, I told you guys I was doing the show, recording the show, and during the break, my right eye turned beet red and got really swollen. It was weird. Well, yesterday, my left ear got swollen and was also bright red. And I just felt like I had an ear infection. So I put a bunch of Vicks Vapor Rub on it, and I started drinking mint tea, which also helps with getting rid of an infection, and also coca tea, which helps with inflammation and pain. So, and I slept and slept. I woke up in the morning, my gums were bright red, which was really strange again. So I just use baking soda, and that helps with that. And it was like I've been putting out fires left and right on my head. Like things will turn bright red, and okay, Visine in the eye gets red out. Like it's been so crazy, and I don't know what this is exactly because I didn't have a fever until today. So whatever it is, my body's finally saying, okay, we're going to get rid of it. And I'm feeling quite a bit better now. Finally, it's almost midnight. I have been in bed since 2 a.m. yesterday, and I'm still kind of in my pajamas, so I'm glad this is not a video. I'm glad it's an audio, but I'm just sitting here under the covers, and this is the first time I've been able to talk all day. My throat was so swollen. I didn't think I was going to be able to do the show, but after a couple cups of coffee, my throat finally is feeling better. It feels sore and raw, but oh my God, do you guys get the fever dreams, the really horrible nightmares when you're sick? I've been having these nightmares all day, and actually I didn't have, one of them wasn't a nightmare. One, I was really thin and my body looked spectacular, and I was like, I had a 19-year-old body again, and I woke up, I'm all, oh man, kind of like the floating dream, like, man, like in that dream, I was like so muscular and you could count every rib. And I'm like, yeah, I'm so thin. I was almost too thin in my dream. But I had another dream. I went to my friend's house, which is weird because he doesn't have a house. And my kids and I were traveling together, which we don't really do anymore. And we were in Florida, a place I've never thought to travel to. And anyway, we're at his house, and in real life, he's not like this, but in my dream, he was like a gun nut, and he went really crazy on me, and he started holding a gun, like saying, we better get out of nowhere. And I'm like, your blood sugar is low, Steve, please, you got to eat something. Let me make you dinner, like, don't do this to us. He's like, get the hell out. And he's like screaming at me. I hate these kind of dreams because they're so nonsensical. You wake up and you're like, oh my God, that would never happen in a million years. This guy's my old roommate from California, and now he lives in Florida. So in my dream, he was in Florida, but not at all the situation he's in. And he's not a gun and knife nut, but he had like weapons at every turn. And I don't even know if that's about, I woke up and I said, okay, God, that's the thing. If this is how it is, because in the dream, I wrestled the gun away from him. It was a shotgun, and I turned it back on him, and I don't know how to use a gun. And I was just like, psst. I was like pushing levers and pulleys on the gun, which makes no sense because I don't think that even exists in real life on the gun. But I accidentally shot him in the stomach, and he had been going on and on about how we shouldn't eat his candy. And I'm like, well, that's it. That's right. I wrestled your gun away, shot you in the stomach. Now I'm going to eat your candy. And my kids and I are like, ooh, candy. And we're sitting there eating his candy out of the candy dish. And they were like, okay, now we're going to go, but we're going to wait and see. We didn't call the police. We didn't do anything to help him. Like all the things I would know to do in reality world, stop the bleeding, call an ambulance, maybe take the bullet out, sew it up. I know how to do all this stuff. But in my dream, I was just like, I'm going to eat your candy. So I woke up and I'm like, God, if that is a parallel universe life, and those are parallel universe us's. And in that dream, I kind of had the feeling that everyone in the world was the same, like that kind of low level selfishness BS. I was just like, let's just collapse that time frame and get rid of all of that, because nobody wants to be that. I don't believe that given a choice, anyone would be that, right? So I woke up just going, oh my God, I hate fever dreams, because I have no animosity towards this person. He calls me every now and again. We're still good friends after years. It was like 6 years ago. He was one of our roommates. We had 10 roommates back in the day. In the Bay Area, you have to have 1 million roommates just to survive. And even then, you're barely surviving. It's completely ridiculous. But yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was just like, what a weird, freaky dream. I hate the freaky dreams. But I'm finally feeling a little bit better. I have a slight fever still. I'm bummed I had to cancel my plans. 2 weeks I planned this. We were just going to go eat tacos. It was like the easiest, simplest plan, but it was like part of the plan to get back on track after all the riots in this country, after all the times of trouble. And finally, let's just sit down and eat something simple like tacos and have a conversation about, life and spirituality and the new age, ideas that we're all going into the fifth dimension and that we're ascending. And so that was just what the plans were. And I'd had this dream that he was my ascension partner, my friend that's supposed to meet today. And it was so strange. It was like the first time I had a dream about him, I had a dream that I was really pregnant, and then I woke up going, oh, we're birthing a new world together. He's my ascension partner. Great. And then today I had a dream that we were going to go out, and I woke up in the morning and I was really thin. And I'm like, oh, of course I'd be really thin after giving birth, right? In my dream, at least. And so we were separate in my dream. And I'm like, okay, so we didn't need to be together in order to ascend together. That was just a potential. That didn't happen. And well, you guys, when I've asked 3 or 4 times today, the answer is, well, we actually are at 100 on the Ascension Symptom Scale. We're actually there. We made it. We are anchored in fully to the 5th dimension now. And I feel like part of the reason why I was asleep all day. Oh my God. I was asleep for 16 hours almost. That's how much I slept today. And that's not at all like me. And I think that part of it is, while my mind was making up insane dreams, I don't know, I think my soul was out doing whatever it takes to help anchor us in or get myself ready for it, I guess. Very weird. And I started thinking, maybe a few days ago, I thought about illness for a few minutes, and maybe that's why I'm sick now. And I don't know if that's true. But I started thinking about how now we're going to be able to affect our world, and we are affecting our world in a really massive way. like with our mind. And from now on, and I asked, we're never going to go back. We're never going to have ascension symptoms or be on the Ascension Symptom Scale again after this. I think there's going to be an adjustment phase. There's going to be an adjustment period, but we're here. We're in it. We've already won it. We're already there. We're in the fifth dimension now. So I feel like things are going to start to go our way. If we are in the right way, things are going to go. So, for example, say you're in a lawsuit with somebody, whoever is the righteous one will be the winner in the case. Regardless of how good you've prepared or how well you've gotten your together and everything, your paperwork is all perfect. If you're not in the right, you're not going to win the case. But if you are in the right, you're definitely going to win. And that's just how I feel. I feel like justice from this point forward is going to always prevail. And eventually, all of the push me, pull you, polarity BS is just going to be gone. It's just going to leave. So I don't know. I don't know why I had that weird dream. It might be because I watched an episode of Dirk Gently yesterday, and there's some weirdness and violence in the show that I don't appreciate that part of it. I appreciate the cosmic part of it, but the violent stuff is like, ugh. I don't want anything to do with that, and that might be why. And if you hear a gunshot in the background while I'm saying violence, it's actually, thank God, it's fireworks are going off. I love living here. Someone's birthday, so happy birthday to whoever they are. It's so cool. I like the fireworks here. Can you hear it? It's like so loud to me. It might not be loud to you guys, but anyway, Schumann Resonance news today, as far as the disclosure news.it, they had the first part of the day just completely missing, and that was just it. It was just a blank black page again, and it says now again they're not, they say RS base frequency 7.83 hertz, but it's saying power 9. So they're still not sure if they want to call it hertz or power, which makes no sense. But it just says calm. So there's that. At least they got it back then. Most of the chart is coming back. And as far as Heart Math Institute, they've got their stuff back online again. In California, they started off at 95 hertz frequency at midnight and just stayed all the way across. They went down to 92 for a bit and then back up to 95. In Hofuf, Saudi Arabia, they started off at 90 hertz frequency at midnight and went up to 93 4 hours later. Lithuania started off at 123 hertz frequency and they went up to 126 hertz frequency 4 hours later. And in Alberta, Canada, they were starting off at 138 hertz frequency and went up to 142 by 4 a.m. Now, I wanted you guys to notice that, these are all frequencies in the fifth dimension, and I don't know what's going on in Italy with their equipment that's been off, but it's weird that it's down to 9 when it's been, 20, 30, 50, 60 hertz over there. And 40 is the lowest rung in the fifth dimension. So, and I know that we're all anchored in, so whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But the Schumann Resonance thing, I don't know. I think it's just a reflection of what's happening with our minds. So in Northland, New Zealand, they started off at 71 hertz frequency at midnight, and they went down to 67 4 hours later. And in Hulului, South Africa, they started off at 155. They're the highest hertz frequency today. They're over there in Africa, and they went up to 159 by 4 a.m. So there we have it. I think life is going to be easier for us from now on, and I hope you guys listen to the ascension signs that you're in the fifth dimension episode last night with the Andromedans. I don't even know if I named it correctly. I might have to go back and rename the episode, but I'm not going to change the content of the program. I just feel like maybe I should change the title, but I'm still not thinking clearly because I'm still like under the weather and sick. And I heard my son rattling around the house around 11:33, and I was just so weak. I didn't really feel like talking. My throat was swollen. And usually he comes in to say hello to me and talk to me. And he didn't, and he left. He's been gone all day, all night. I have a feeling, though, he has 2 friends that have birthdays on either side of his birthday. So it's like a 3-day party. So I'm sure he's at, I know where he's at, I'm pretty sure. But so I'm sitting here alone in my house just going, do I make dinner for us when you're maybe not coming home? And so it was just kind of crazy. So it just added to my weirdness of the day, though, that I woke up and he's not here, and it's now night and he's not here. But I know where he is. He didn't tell me. But I've got a psychicness with him that I know what's up. But there was like a couple years ago when I started hearing about this, I'm like, what if I raise my vibration so high that I go to the 5th dimension and my kids are stayed behind, and so they're stuck in the other dimension, and now I'm in the 5th, and oh my God, where are my kids? Where's my life purpose, which is raising my children right now? And so it was kind of freaky for me to wake up and realize, oh man, we're in the 5th dimension, and oh my God, my kid's not here. Even though we've been in the 5th, but knowing now that we're anchored in and then he's not here, I'm like, part of me was like, wait a minute. Did half the world disappear while I was asleep? Ooh. I don't think it's true. It's very weird. Another strange thing happened to me today, though. I picked up my phone and I was like, oh, maybe it's time for me to do my show a couple hours ago. And my phone was like really low, like red bar. Oh no, I've got to plug it in. So I plugged in my phone. And I waited, I watched a movie, and I looked, and it was at 49% battery. And I thought, well, if I watch maybe an episode of Friends in 30 minutes, it'll have like over 52%. So I looked at it, and it was up to 58%. I went, oh, good. Okay, so I have enough time. Now I could record and then plug it back in when I'm done recording the show. Great. So it was 58%. It was in my hand for a couple minutes. And I started queuing up the websites that I need, making sure everything is good to go so I could begin the show while the phone was in my hand. And I looked, and suddenly it went from 58% to 97%. Now remember, before we were anchored in the 5th frequency, the 5th dimension, I was actually draining my phone when I touched it. Now I added to it, which is weird since I'm sick and my energy feels so low. And then all of a sudden, here it is. It went to 97%. Totally freaky. Like I don't know why that happened. I'm happy it did. So I don't know. Does that mean from now on we're just going to be able to charge stuff up with our minds, thinking I wish it was there, then boom, it's there? How awesome. I hope that is the case, because that would be pretty incredible, right? Anyway, we are in A Course in Miracles, lesson 131. And last night, I kind of had a quick conversation with Yeshua about this, and I said, you said that we have to know this stuff regardless of who we are, where we're at. These are truths that we all have to come by eventually. In your book, you said that, Course in Miracles. And so now that we're anchoring into the 5th dimension, now what? And he said, it's okay. You still need to know. So I'm still going to continue to read these because there's still information that will help us. And by the way, my higher guidance says that we still will have the occasional negative thought or residue from the negative past. We're still going to have residue of it, but So don't worry, if that comes up. If you have a dream that's negative, you're just getting rid of it usually, the thoughts or energy of it. And if you have negative thoughts or pangs of jealousy or anger or negative thoughts, it's okay. But it's going to be much easier to soothe yourself and heal from those thoughts now because the vibration is higher. So don't panic and go, oh no, I didn't anchor in. I'm not really in the fifth dimension. You are. Everyone is, even the sleeping ones. They're still waking up. It's just that things are going to be resolved quicker now. Things are going to be easier. What you think about, you bring about. So just think about your best possible life. The life that's going to blow your freaking mind. You don't want a life that's miserable or just okay. You want a life that's going to be so spectacular that legends in heaven will be created around the life you were able to bring about with your mind, right? So that's something else I wanted to say today. All right, lesson 131 in A Course in Miracles at acim.org, or if you want to do further research and read this lesson all the way through, because it's huge, go ahead and get A Course in Miracles or ACIM app. They're always free. So there's no excuse. If you're interested, just go ahead and do it. Download it. You'll thank me later because these are going to be helpful even if you just hear me saying them. The high vibe of this information is helpful, right? All right, so lesson 131 is no one can fail who seeks to reach the truth. No one can fail who seeks to reach the truth. Failure is all about you while you seek for goals that cannot be achieved. You look for permanence in the impermanent, for love where there is none, for safety in the midst of danger, immortality within the darkness of the dream of death. Who can succeed where contradiction is the setting of his searching and the place to which he comes to find stability? Goals that are meaningless are not attained. There's no way to reach them, for the means by which you strive for them are meaningless as they are. Who can use such senseless means and hope through them to gain in anything? Where can they lead? And what could they achieve that offers any hope of being real? Pursuit of the imagined leads to death because it's the search for nothingness. And while you seek for life, you ask for death. You look for safety and security while in your heart you pray for danger and protection for the little dream you made. It's kind of strange. It kind of, again, goes along with the thing my stupid dream that I had. Literally, it talks about dreams. So what? I'm skipping ahead a little bit. It does say that no one remains in hell, which is good. But why wait for heaven? It is here today. Time is a great illusion. It is past or in the future, yet this cannot be if it is where God wills his Son to be. How could the will of God be in the past or yet to happen? What he wills is now, without a past and wholly futureless. It is as far removed from time as is a tiny candle from a distant star, or what you chose from what you really want. Heaven remains your one alternative to this strange world you made, and all of its ways, its shifting patterns and uncertain goals, its painful pleasures and tragic joys. God made no contradictions. What denies its own existence and attacks itself is not of him. He did not make two minds, with heaven as a glad effect of one, and earth the other's sorry outcome, which is heaven's opposite in every way. God does not suffer conflict, nor is his creation split in two. How could it be his Son could be in hell when God himself established him in heaven? So I'm going to stop reading the lesson there, but here's another couple thoughts for the practice periods. I ask to see a different world and think a different kind of thought from those that I made. The world I seek, I did not make alone. The thoughts I want to think are not my own. Today I seek and find all that I want. My single purpose offers it to me. No one can fail who seeks to reach the truth. So there we go. That was lesson 131. I'm going to take a quick break, and it's a little bit shorter today, I know, but I'm just feeling real lousy. I'm fading fast. I'm going to go ahead and read Clairvoyance and the Occult by Swami Panchadasi. We're continuing now with lesson 9 on simple clairvoyance right after this message. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's high time you did. It is the absolute easiest way to make a podcast. First of all, it's absolutely free. Second of all, they have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. You guys have known that I've been doing this for 8 months using the Anchor.fm app right on my cell phone, and I have done it everywhere, right? I have recorded this in my living room, my bedroom, little cafes in Quito, Ecuador, all over Cuenca. It's so absolutely easy to make your podcast, and editing is just a snap. Anchor also will distribute your podcast for you, and it took me about 2.5 months to become syndicated, and now I'm available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more, and so can you. You can make money from your podcast also, and there's no minimum requirement. You get paid from your very first listener. It is everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. So please, if you are interested in making a podcast of your very own, do not hesitate to start with Anchor. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Metaphysical Soul Speak is run on sponsors and listener support. This means listeners like you. If you are so inclined to support my efforts and my little podcast, please visit me at anchor.fm/metaphysical and pledge an amount of your choosing today. Thank you. Lesson 9 in Clairvoyance and the Occult by William Walter Atkinson, otherwise known as Swami Panchadasi. Lesson 9 is called Simple Clairvoyance. In a previous chapter, we have seen there are 3 well-defined classes of clairvoyance, namely, number 1, simple clairvoyance, number 2, clairvoyance in space, and number 3, clairvoyance in time. I shall now consider these in sequence, beginning with the first, simple clairvoyance. In simple clairvoyance, the clairvoyant person merely senses the auric emanations of other persons, such as the auric vibrations, colors, etc., currents of thought vibrations, etc., but does not see events or scenes removed in space or time from the observer. There are other peculiar phenomena to this class of clairvoyance, which I shall note as we progress with this chapter. An authority on the subject of astral phenomena has written interestingly as follows regarding some of the phases of simple clairvoyance. When we come to consider the additional facilities which it offers in the observation of animate objects, we still see more clearly the advantages of astral vision. It exhibits to the clairvoyant the aura of plants and animals, and thus in the case of the latter, their desires and emotions, and whatever thoughts they may have, are all plainly shown before his eyes. But It is in dealing with human beings that he will most appreciate the value of this faculty, for he will often be able to help them far more effectually when he guides himself by the information which it gives him. He will be able to see the aura as far as up to the astral body, and though that leaves all the higher part of a man still hidden from his gaze, he will nevertheless find it possible, by careful observation, to learn a good deal about the higher part from what is within his reach. His capacity of examination of the etheric double will give him considerable advantage in locating and classifying any defects or diseases of the nervous system, while from the appearance of the astral body, he will at once be aware of all the emotions, passions, desires, and tendencies of the man before him, and even of the very many of his thoughts also. As he looks at a person, he will see him surrounded by the luminous mist of the astral aura, flashing with all sorts of brilliant colors and constantly changing in hue and brilliancy with every variation of the person's thoughts and feelings. He will see this aura flooded with the beautiful rose color of pure affection and rich blue of devotional feeling, the hard dull brown of selfishness, the deep scarlet of anger, the horrible lurid red of sensuality, the livid gray of fear, the black clouds of hatred and malice, and any of the other hundredfold indications so easily to be read in it by the practiced eye. And thus it will be impossible for any persons to conceal from him the real state of their feelings on any subject. Not only does the astral aura show him the temporary result of the emotion passing through it at the moment, but it also gives him, by an arrangement and proportion of its colors when in a condition of comparative rest, a clue to the general disposition and character of its owner. By simple clairvoyance in a certain stage of development, the clairvoyant person is able to sense the presence of the human aura by means of his astral sight. The human aura, as all students of occultism know, is that peculiar emanation of astral vibrations that extends from each living human being, surrounding him in an egg-shaped form for a distance of 2 to 3 feet on all sides. This peculiar nebulous envelope is not visible to physical sight and may be discerned only by means of the astral senses. It, however, may be dimly felt by many persons coming into the presence of other persons, and constitutes a personal atmosphere which is sensed by other persons. The trained clairvoyant vision sees the human aura as a nebulous, hazy substance, like a luminous cloud surrounding the person for 2 or 3 feet on each side of his body, being more dense near the body and gradually becoming less dense as it extends away from the body. It has a phosphorescence appearance, with a peculiar tremulous motion manifesting through its substance. The clairvoyant sees the human aura as composed of all the colors of the spectrum, the combination shifting with the changing mental and emotional states of the person. But in a general way, it may be said that each person has his or her or distinctive astral auric colors, depending upon his or her general character or personality. Each mental state or emotional manifestation has its own particular shade or combination of shades of auric coloring. This beautiful kaleidoscope spectacle has its own meaning to the advanced occultist with clairvoyant vision, for he is able to read the character and general mental states of the person by means of studying his astral auric colors. I have explained these auric colors and their meanings in my little book entitled The Human Aura. The human aura is not always in a state of calm phosphorescence, however. On the contrary, it sometimes manifests great flames like those of a fiery furnace, which shoot forth in great tongues and dart forth suddenly in certain directions toward objects, attracting them. Under great emotional excitement, the auric flames move around in swift, circling whirlpools, or else swirl away from a center. Again, it seems to throw forth tiny glistening sparks of astral vibrations, some of which travel for a great distance. The clairvoyant vision is also able to discern what is called the prana aura of a person. By this term is indicated the peculiar emanation of vital force which surrounds the physical body of each and every person. In fact, many persons of but slight clairvoyant power who cannot sense the auric colors are able to perceive the prana aura without trouble. It is sometimes called the health aura or physical aura. It's colorless, or rather about the shade of clear glass, diamond, or water. It is streaked with the very minute bristle-like lines. In a state of good health, these fine lines are stiff like toothbrush bristles, while in cases of poor health, these lines droop, curl, and present a fur-like appearance. Okay. It is sometimes filled with minute, sparkling particles like tiny electric sparks in rapid vibratory motion. To the clairvoyant vision, the prana aura appears like the vibrating heated air arising from a fire or stove or from the heated earth in summertime. If the student will close his eyes partially and will peer through the narrowed eyelids, he will in all probability be able to perceive this prana aura surrounding the body of some healthy, vigorous person, particularly if the person is sitting in a dim light. Looking closely, he will see the peculiar vibratory motion, like heated air, at a distance of about 2 inches from the body of the person. It requires a little practice in order to acquire the knack of perceiving these vibrations, a little experimenting in order to get just the right light on the person, but practice will bring success, and you will be repaid for your trouble. In the same way, the student may be practice acquired. This is not typed correctly. Okay. In the same way, the student may by practice acquire the faculty to perceiving his own prana aura. The simplest way to obtain this last mentioned result is to place your fingers spread out in fan shape against a black background in a dim light. Gaze at the fingers with narrowed eyelids, half closed eyes. After a little practice, you will see a fine, thin line surrounding your fingers on all sides, semi-luminous border of prana aura. In most cases, this border of aura is colorless, but sometimes a very pale yellowish hue is perceived. The stronger the vital force of the person, the stronger and brighter this border of prana aura appear. The aura surrounding the fingers will appear very much like the semi-luminous radiance surrounding a gas flame or the flame of a candle, which is familiar to nearly everyone. Another peculiar phenomena of the astral plane, perceived by clairvoyants of a certain degree of development, is that which is known as the thought form. A thought form is a specialized grouping of astral substance crystallized by the strong thought impulses or vibrations of a person thinking or manifesting strong emotional excitement. It is generated in the aura of the person in the first place, but it is then thrown off or emitted from the atmosphere of the person and is sent off into space. A thought form is really but a strong manifested thought or feeling which has taken form in the astral substance. Its power and duration depend upon the degree of the force of the thought or feeling manifesting it. These thought forms differ very materially from one another in form and general appearance. The most common form is that of a tiny series of waves, similar to those caused by the dropping of a pebble into a pond of water. Sometimes the thought form takes on the appearance of a whirlpool rotating around a center and moving through space as well. Another form is like that of the pinwheel fireworks, swirling away from center as it moves through space. Still another form is that of a whirling ring, like that emitted from a smokestack of a locomotive or the mouth of a smoker, the familiar ring of the smoker. Others have the form and appearance of semiluminous globes, glowing like that of a giant opal. Other thought forms are emitted in jet-like streams, like steam puffed out from a tea kettle. Again, it will appear as a series of short puffs of steam-like appearance. Again, it will twist along like an eel or a snake. Another time, it will twist its way like a corkscrew. At other times, it will appear as a bomb or a series of bombs projected from the aura of the thinker. Sometimes, as in the case of a vigorous thinker or speaker, these thought form bombs will be seen to explode when they reach the aura of the person addressed or thought of. Other forms appear like nebulous things resembling an octopus, whose twining tentacles twist around the person to whom they are directed. Each thought form bears the same color that it possessed when generated in the aura of its creator, though the colors seem to fade with time. Many of them glow with a dull phosphorescence instead of bright coloring. The atmosphere of every person and every place is filled with various thought forms emanated from the person or persons who inhabit the place. Each building has its own distinctive thought forms, which permeate its mental atmosphere and which are clearly discernible by trained clairvoyant vision. I here take the liberty of quoting a few paragraphs from my book entitled The Astral World, in which the phenomena of the astral plane are explained in detail. I reproduce them here in order to show you what you may see on the astral plane when your clairvoyant vision is sufficiently developed to function there. The words are addressed to one who is sensing on the astral plane. Notice that beautiful spiritual blue around that woman's head, and see that ugly muddy red around the man passing her. Here comes an intellectual giant. See that beautiful golden yellow around his head like a nimbus? But I don't exactly like that shade of red around his body. There's too marked an absence of blue in his aura. He lacks harmonious development. Do you notice those great clouds of semi-luminous substance which are slowly floating along? Notice how the colors vary in them. Those are clouds of thought vibrations representing the composite thought of a multitude of people. And notice how each body of thought is drawing to itself little fragments of similar thought forms and energy. You see here the tendency of thought forms to attract others of their kind. How like the proverbial birds of a feather they flock together. How thoughts come home, bringing their friends with them. How each man creates his own thought atmosphere. Speaking of atmospheres, do you notice that each shop we pass has its own peculiar thought atmosphere? If you look into the houses on either side of the street, you will see that the same thing is true. The very street itself has its own atmosphere, created by the composite thought of those inhabiting and frequenting it. No, do not pass down that side street. Its astral atmosphere is too depressing, its colors too horrible and disgusting for you to witness just now. You might get discouraged and fly back to your physical body for relief. Look at those thought forms flying through the atmosphere. What a variety of form and coloring. Some most beautiful, the majority quite neutral in tint, and occasionally a fierce, fiery one tearing its way along toward its mark. Observe those whirling and swirling thought forms as they are thrown off from that business house. Across the street, notice that great octopus monster of a thought form with its great tentacles striving to wind around persons and draw them into that flashy dance hall and dram shop. A devilish monster which we could do well to destroy. Turn your concentrated thought upon it and will it out of existence. There, that's the right way. Watch it sicken and shrivel. But alas, more of its kind will come forth from that place. The above represents the sights common to an advanced occultist who explores the astral plane either in his astral body or by means of his clairvoyant vision. To such a one, these sights are just as natural as those of the physical plane to the person functioning by ordinary physical senses. One is as natural as is the other. There's nothing supernatural about either. But there are other and even more wonderful attributes of astral visioning than that which we just have related. Let us take a general survey of these so that you may be familiar with what you hope to see on the astral plane and which you will see when you have sufficiently developed your clairvoyant powers. What would you think if you could see through a brick wall? Well, the clairvoyant is able to do this. For that matter, the physical x-rays are able to penetrate through solid substances, and the astral vibrations are even more subtle than these. It seems strange to hear of this kind of visioning as purely natural, doesn't it? It smacks strongly of the old supernatural tales, but it is as simply natural as is the x-ray. The advanced clairvoyant is able to see through the most solid objects, and inside of anything for that matter. The astral senses register the subtle vibrations of the astral plane, just as the physical eye registers the ordinary rays of light energy. You are able to see through solid glass with the physical eye, are you not? Well, in the same way, the clairvoyant sees through solid steel or granite. It is all a matter of registering vibrations of energy, nothing more, nothing less. It is in this way that the trained clairvoyant is able to read from closed books, sealed letters, etc. In the same way, he's able to pierce the dense soil and to see far down into the depths of the earth, subject to certain limitations. Veins of coal, oil, and other substances have been discovered clairvoyantly in this way. Not every clairvoyant is able to do this, but the advanced ones have done it. In the same way, the trained clairvoyant is able to see inside the bodies of sick persons, diagnose their ailments, providing, of course, he is familiar with the appearance of the organs in health and in disease, and has a sufficient knowledge of physiology and pathology to interpret what he sees. An authority on the phenomenon of the astral plane has written entertainingly and correctly regarding this phase of simple clairvoyance as follows. The possession of this extraordinary and scarcely expressible power then must be borne in mind through all that follows. It lays every point in the interior of every solid body absolutely open to the gaze of the seer, just as every point in the interior of a circle lies open to the gaze of a man looking down upon it. But even this is by no means all that it gives to its possessor. He sees not only the inside as well as the outside of every object, but also its astral counterpart. Every atom and molecule of physical matter has its corresponding astral atoms and molecules, and the mass which is built up out of these is clearly visible to the clairvoyant. Usually, the astral form of any object projects somewhat beyond the physical part of it, and thus metals, stones, and other things are seen surrounded by an astral aura. It will be seen at once that even in the study of inorganic matter, a man gains immensely by the acquisition of this vision. Not only does he see the astral part of the object at which he looks, which before was wholly hidden from him, not only does he see much more of its physical constitution than he did before, but even what was visible to him before is now seen much more clearly and truly. Another strange power of which he may find himself in possession is that of magnifying at will the minutest physical or astral particle to any desired size, as through a microscope. Though no microscope ever made, or ever likely to be made, possesses even 1,000th part of the psychic magnifying power. By its means, the hypothetical molecule and atom postulated by science become visible and living realities to the occult student, and on this closer examination, he finds them to be much more complex in their structure than the scientific man has yet realized them to be. It also enables him to follow with the closest attention and the most lively interest all kinds of electrical, magnetic, and other etheric action. And when some of these specialists of these branches of science are able to develop the power to see these things, whereof they write so facilely, some very wonderful and beautiful revelations may be expected. This is one of the cities, Siddhis, or I think it's Siddhis, I think it's spelled wrong. The cities, I think it means like people with magical powers, maybe? I don't know. This is one of the cities or powers. Oh, it means power. Duh, sorry about that. This is one of the cities or powers described in the Oriental books as accruing to the man who devotes himself to spiritual development. Though the name under which it is there mentioned might not be immediately recognizable, it is referred to as the power of making oneself large or small at will, and the reason of a description which appears so oddly to reverse the fact is that in reality the method by which this feat is performed is precisely that indicated by these ancient books. Interesting. It is by the use of temporary visual machinery of inconceivable minuteness that the world of the infinitely little is so clearly seen. And in the same way, or rather in the opposite way, it is by enormously increasing the size of the machinery used that it becomes possible to increase the breadth of one's view in the physical sense as well as, let us hope, in the moral, far beyond anything that science has ever dreamt of as possible for man. So that alteration in size is really in the vehicle of the student's consciousness and not in anything outside of himself. And the old Oriental books have, after all, put the case more accurately than have we. I have indicated, though only in the roughest outlines, what a trained student possessed of full astral vision would see in the immensely wider world to which that vision introduced him. But I've said nothing of the stupendous change in his mental attitudes which come from the experimental certainty regarding matters of paramount importance. The difference between even the profoundest intellectual conviction and the precise knowledge gained by direct personal experience must be felt in order to be appreciated. Now, here at this place, I wish to call the attention of the student to the fact that while the above stated phenomena strictly belong to the class of simple clairvoyance, rather than to space clairvoyance or time clairvoyance, respectively. Nevertheless, the same phenomena may be manifested in connection with that of these other classes of clairvoyance. For instance, in space clairvoyance, the trained clairvoyant is able not only to perceive things happening at points far distant, but may also, if highly developed psychically, be able to perceive the details just mentioned as well as if he were at that distant point in person. Likewise, in time clairvoyance, the clairvoyant may exercise the power of magnifying vision regarding the object far distant in time, just as if he were living in that time. So here as elsewhere, we find the different classes of phenomena shading and blending into each other. At the best, classifications are useful principally for convenience in intellectual considering and reasoning. In the same way, the clairvoyant may manifest the above-mentioned forms of astral sensing in cases when the astral vision has been awakened by psychometry or by crystal gazing, as well as in those cases in which the condition has been brought about through meditation or similar methods. I would also call the attention of the student to the fact that in the above description of the phenomena of simple clairvoyance, I have made no mention of the sights of the astral plane which often become visible to the clairvoyant and which have to do with astral bodies, astral shells, the disembodied souls of those who have passed on to other planes of existence, etc. I shall take up these matters in other parts of the course, and shall not dwell upon them in this place. But I wish you to remember that the same power which enables you to sense other objects by means of the astral scenes is the same that is called into operation in the cases to which I have just referred. The astral plane is a wonderful plane or field of being containing many strange and wonderful beings and things. The person living on in the physical plane may visit the astral plane in the astral body, and again he may perceive the happenings and scenes of that plane by means of the awakened and developed astral senses. Some clairvoyants find it easy to function in one way and some in another. It is reserved for the scientifically developed clairvoyant to manifest that well-rounded power to perceive the phenomena of the astral plane in its wonderful entirety. Finally, you will see by reference to other chapters of this book that one may manifest simple clairvoyant powers as well as the more complicated ones of time and space clairvoyance, not only in the ordinary waking state, but also in the state of dreams. In fact, some of the most striking psychic phenomena are manifested when the seer is in a dream state. As we proceed, you will find that every phase of the great subject will fit into its place and will be found to blend with every other phase. There will be found a logical harmony and unity of thought pervading the whole subject. But we must use single bricks and stones as we build. It is only in the completed structure that we may perceive the harmonious unity. Lesson 10. Clairvoyance of Distant Scenes. Let us now consider the phenomena of the second class of clairvoyance, namely, clairvoyance in space. In space clairvoyance, the clairvoyant person senses scenes and events removed in space from the observer. That is to say, scenes and events situated outside of the range of the physical vision of the clairvoyant. In this class also is included certain phenomena in which the clairvoyant vision is able to discern things that may be concealed or obscured by intervening material objects. Some of the many different forms and phases of space clairvoyance are illustrated by the following examples, all taken from the best sources. Bushnell relates the following well-known case of space clairvoyance. Quote, Captain Yount of Napa Valley, California, one midwinter's night, had a dream in which he saw what appeared to be a company of emigrants arrested by the snows of the mountains and perishing rapidly by cold and hunger. He noted the very cast of the scenery, marked by a huge perpendicular front of white rock cliff. He saw the men cutting off what appeared to be treetops rising out of the deep gulfs of snow. He distinguished the very features of the persons and their look of peculiar distress. He awoke profoundly impressed by the distinctness and apparent reality of the dream. He at length fell asleep and dreamed exactly the same dream over again. In the morning, he could not expel it from his mind. Falling in shortly after with an old hunter comrade, he told his story, and he was only the more deeply impressed by him recognizing without hesitation the scenery of the dream. This comrade came over the Sierra by Carson Valley Pass and declared that a spot in the pass exactly answered his description. By this, the unsophistical patriarch was decided. He immediately collected a company of men with mules and blankets and all necessary provisions. The neighbors were laughing, meantime, at his credulity. No matter, he said, I'm able to do this, and I will, for I verily believe that the fact is according to my dream. The men were sent into the mountains 150 miles distant, directly to the Carson Valley Pass. And there they found the company exactly in the condition of the dream and brought in the remnant alive. In connection with this case, some leading occultists are of the opinion that the thought waves from the minds of the distressed lost persons reached Captain Yount in his sleep and awakened his subconscious attention. Having natural clairvoyant power, though previously unaware of it, he naturally directed his astral vision to the source of the mental currents and perceived clairvoyantly the scene described in the story. Not having any acquaintance with any of the lost party, it was only by reason of the mental currents of distress so sent out that his attention was attracted. This is a very interesting case because several psychic factors are involved in it, as I have just said. In the following case, there is found a connecting link of acquaintance with the person playing a prominent part in the scene, although there was no conscious appeal to the clairvoyant, nor conscious interest on her part regarding the case. The story is well known and appears in the Proceedings of the Society for Psychical Research. It runs as follows. Mrs. Broughton awoke one night in 1844 and roused her husband, telling him that something dreadful has happened in France. He begged her to go to sleep again and not trouble him. She assured him that she was not asleep when she saw what she insisted on telling him. What she saw, in fact. She saw first a carriage accident, or rather the scene of such an accident which had occurred a few moments before. What she saw was the result of the accident: a broken carriage, a crowd collected, a figure gently raised and carried into the nearest house, then a figure lying on a bed, which she recognized as the Duke of Orleans, or in French, Duke of Orleans. Gradually, friends collected around the bed, among them several members of the French royal family. The Queen, then the King, all silently, tearfully watching the evidently dying Duke. One man, she could see his back but did not know who he was a doctor. He stood bending over the Duke, feeling his pulse with his watch in the other hand. And then all passed away and she saw no more. As soon as it was daylight, she wrote down in her journal all that she had seen. It was before the days of the telegraph, and 2 or more days passed before the newspapers announced the death of the Duke of Orleans. Visiting Paris a short time afterwards, she saw and recognized the place of the accident and received the explanation of her impression. The doctor who attended the dying Duke was an old friend of hers, and as he watched by the bed, his mind had been thinking constantly, occupied with her and her family. In many cases of clairvoyance of this kind, there is found to exist a strong connecting link of mutual interest or affection, over which flows a strong attention-arousing force of need or distress, which calls into operation the clairvoyant visioning. In other cases, there seems to be lacking any connecting link, although even in such cases, there may be a subconscious link connecting the clairvoyant with the scene or event. An interesting example of this last mentioned phase is that related by W.T. Stead, the English editor and author, as having happened to himself. Mr. Stead's recital follows. I got into bed and was not able to sleep. I shut my eyes and waited for sleep to come. Instead of sleep, however, there came to me a succession of curiously vivid, clairvoyant pictures. There was no light in the room. It was perfectly dark. I had my eyes shut also, but notwithstanding the darkness, I suddenly was conscious of looking at a scene of singular beauty. It was as if I saw a living miniature about the size of a magic lantern slide. At this moment, I can recall the scene as if I saw it again. It was a seaside piece. The moon was shining upon the water, which rippled slowly onto the beach. Right before me, a long mole ran into the water. On either side of the mole, irregular rocks stood above the sea level. In the shore stood several houses, square and rude, which resembled nothing I'd ever seen in house architecture. No one was stirring, but the moon was there in the sea and the gleam of the moonlight on the rippling waters, just as if I'd been looking on the actual scene. It was so beautiful that I remember thinking that if it continued, I should be so interested in looking at it that I should never go to sleep. I was wide awake, and at the same time that I saw the scene, I distinctly heard the dripping of the rain outside the window. Then suddenly, without any apparent object or reason, the scene changed. The moonlight sea vanished, and in its place, I was looking right into the interior of a reading room. It seemed as if it had been used as a schoolroom in the daytime and was employed as a reading room in the evening. I remember seeing one reader who had a curious resemblance to Tim Harrington, although it was not he, hold up a book or magazine in his hand and laugh. It was not a picture. It was there. The scene was just as if you were looking through an opera glass. You saw the play of the muscles, the gleaming of the eye, every movement of unknown persons in that unnamed place into which you were gazing. I saw all that without opening my eyes, nor did my eyes have anything to do with it. You see such things as these as if it were another sense which is more inside your head than in your eyes. The pictures were apropos of nothing. They had been suggested by nothing I had been reading or talking of. They simply came as if I had been able to look through a glass at what was occurring somewhere else in the world. I had my peep, and then it passed. An interesting case of space clairvoyance is that related of Swedenborg on the best authority. The story runs that in the latter part of September 1759, at 4 o'clock one Saturday afternoon, Swedenborg arrived home from England and disembarked at the town of Gothenburg. A friend, Mr. W. Castell, met him and invited him to dinner, at which meal there were 15 persons gathered round the table in honor of the guest. At 6 o'clock, Swedenborg went out a few minutes, returning to the table shortly thereafter, looking pale and excited. When questioned by the guests, he replied that there was a fire at Stockholm, 200 miles distant, and that the fire was steadily spreading. He grew very restless and frequently left the room. He said the house of one of his friends, whose name he mentioned, was already in ashes and that his own was in danger. At 8 o'clock, after he had been out again, he returned crying out cheerfully, "Thank heaven the fire is out, the third door from my house." The news of the strange happening greatly excited the people of the town, and the city officials made inquiry regarding it. Swedenborg was summoned before the authorities and requested to relate in detail what he had seen. Answering the questions put to him, he told when and how the fire started, how it begun, how, when, and where it had stopped, the time it had lasted, the number of houses destroyed or damaged, and the number of persons injured. On the following Monday morning, a courier arrived from Stockholm bringing news of the fire, having left the town while it was still burning. On the next day after, Tuesday morning, another courier arrived in the city hall with a full report of the fire, which corresponded precisely with the vision of Swedenborg. The fire had stopped precisely at 8 o'clock, the very minute that Swedenborg had so announced it to the company. A similar case is related by Stead, having been told to him by the wife of a dean in the Episcopal Church. He relates it as follows. I was staying in Virginia, some 100 miles away from home, when one morning about 11 o'clock I felt an overpowering sleepiness, which drowsiness was quite unusual, and which caused me to lie down. In my sleep, I saw quite distinctly my home in Richmond in flames. The fire had broken out in one wing of the house, which I saw with dismay was where I kept all my best dresses. The people were all trying to check the flames, but it was no use. My husband was there walking about before the burning house, carrying a portrait in his hand. Everything was quite clear and distinct, exactly as if I'd actually been present and seen everything. After a time, I woke up and going downstairs told my friends a strange dream I had had. They laughed at me and made such a game of my vision that I did my best to think no more about it. I was traveling about, a day or two passed, and when Sunday came, I found myself in a church where some relatives were worshiping. When I entered the pew, they looked very strange, and as the service was over, I asked them what was the matter. Don't be alarmed, they said. There is nothing serious. Then they handed me a postcard from my husband, which simply said, "House burned out, covered by insurance." Oh my God, such a man thing to think at that moment, covered by insurance. Oh my God. The day was the date upon which my dream occurred. I hastened home, and then I learned that everything had happened exactly as I had seen it. The fire had broken out in the wing I had seen blazing. My clothes were all burned, and the oddest thing about it was that my husband, having rescued a favorite picture from the burning building, had carried it about among the crowd for some time before he could find a place in which to put it safely. Another case related by Stead, the same authority, runs as follows. The father of a son who had sailed on the Strathmore, an emigrant ship outbound from the Clyde, saw one night the ship foundering amid the waves, and saw that his son with some others had escaped safely to a desert island near which the wreck had taken place. He was so impressed by this vision that he wrote to the owner of the Strathmore, telling him what he had seen. His information was scouted, but after a while the Strathmore became overdue, and the owner became uneasy. Day followed day, and still no tidings of the missing ship. Then, like Pharaoh's butler, the owner remembered his sins one day and hunted up the letter describing the vision. It supplied at least a theory to account for the ship's disappearance. All outward bound ships were requested to look out for any survivors on the island indicated in the vision. These orders were obeyed, and the survivors of the Strathmore were found exactly where the father had seen them. The Society for Psychical Research mentions another interesting case as follows. Dr. Golinsky, a physician of Kremenchug, Russia, was taking an after-dinner nap in the afternoon about 3:30 o'clock. He had a vision in which he saw himself called out on a professional visit, which took him to a little room with dark hangings. To the right of the door, he saw a chest of drawers upon which rested a little paraffin lamp of special pattern, different from anything he had ever seen before. On the left of the door, he saw a woman suffering from a severe hemorrhage. He then saw himself giving her professional treatment. Then he awoke suddenly and saw it was just 4:30. Within 10 minutes after he awoke, he was called out on a professional visit, and upon entering the bedroom, he saw all the details that appeared to him in the vision. There was a chest of drawers, there was the peculiar lamp, there was that woman on the bed suffering from the hemorrhage. Upon inquiry, he found that she had grown worse between 3 and 4 o'clock and had anxiously desired that he come to her about that time, finally dispatching a messenger for him at 4:30, the moment at which he awoke. Another and a most peculiar phase of space clairvoyance is that in which certain persons so awaken the astral senses of other persons that these persons perceive the first person, usually in the form of seemingly seeing the person present in the immediate vicinity, just as one would see a ghostly visitor. In some cases, there is manifested double clairvoyance, both persons visioning clairvoyantly. In other cases, only the person visited astrally senses the occurrence. The following cases illustrate this form of space clairvoyance. W.T. Stead relates the case of a lady well known to him who spontaneously developed the power of awakening astral perception in others. She seemed to materialize in their presence. Her power in this direction became a source of considerable anxiety and worry to her friends, to whom she would pay unexpected and involuntary visits, frightening them out of their wits by the appearance of her ghost. They naturally thought she had died suddenly and had appeared to them in ghostly form. The lady herself was totally unconscious of the appearance, though she admitted that at or about the times of the appearances, she had been thinking of her friends whom she visited astrally. The German writer Jung Stilling mentions a case of a man of good character who had developed power of this kind, but also was conscious of his visits. He exerted the power consciously by an effort of will, it seems. At one time, he was consulted by the wife of a sea captain whose husband was on a long voyage to Europe and Asia, sailing from America. His ship was long overdue, and his wife quite worried about him. She consulted the gentleman in question, and he promised to do what he could for her. Leaving the room, he threw himself on a couch and was seen by the lady, who peered through the half-open door, to be in a state of semi-trance. Finally, he returned and told her that he had visited her husband in a coffee house in London and gave her husband's reasonings for not writing, adding that her husband would soon return to America. When her husband returned several months later, the wife asked him about the matter. He informed her that the clairvoyant's report was correct in every particular. Upon being introduced to the clairvoyant, the captain manifested great surprise, saying that he had met the man in question on a certain day in a coffee house in London, and that the man had told him that his wife was worried about him, and that he had told the man he had been prevented from writing for several reasons, and that he was on the eve of beginning his return voyage to America. He added that when he looked for the man a few moments afterwards, the stranger had apparently lost himself in the crowd, disappeared, and was no more seen by him. The Society for Psychical Research gives prominence to the celebrated case of the member of the London Stock Exchange, whose identity it conceals under the initials SHB, who possessed this power of voluntary awakening of astral sight in others by means of his appearance to them. The man relates his experience to the society as follows, quote, "One Sunday night, November 1881, I was in Kildare Gardens when I willed very strongly that I would visit in the spirit two lady friends, the Mrs. X, who were living 3 miles off in Hogworth Road. I willed that I should do this at 1 o'clock in the morning, and having willed it, I went to sleep. Next Thursday, when I first met my friends, the elder lady told me that she woke up and saw my apparition advancing to her bedside. She screamed and woke up her sisters, who also saw me. The report includes a signed statement of the ladies giving the time of the appearance and the details thereof. Again, on December 1st, 1882, I was at South Hall. At 9:30, I sat down to endeavor to fix my mind so strongly upon the interior of a house at Kew, where Miss V and her sister lived, that I seemed to be actually in the house. I was conscious, but was in a kind of mesmeric sleep. When I went to bed that night, I willed to be in the front bedroom of that house at Kew at 12, and to make my presence felt by the inmates. Next day, I went to Kew. Mrs. V's married sister told me, without any prompting from me, that she had seen me in the passage going from one room at another at 9:30, and that at 12. When she was wide awake, she saw me come to the front bedroom where she slept and take her hair, which is very long, into my hand. She said I then took her hand and gazed into the palm intently. She said, "You need not look at the lines, for I never have any trouble." She then woke her sister. When Mrs. L told me this, I took out the entry that I had made the previous night and read it to her. Mrs. L is quite sure she was not dreaming. She had only seen me once before, 2 years previously. Again, on March 22nd, 1884, I wrote to Mr. Gurney of the Psychical Research Society, telling him that I was going to make my presence felt by Mrs. V at 44 Norland Square at midnight. 10 days afterwards, I saw Mrs. V when she voluntarily told me that on Saturday at midnight she distinctly saw me when she was quite wide awake. The records of the psychic researchers are filled up with numerous accounts of cases in which similar astral projections have occurred when the person was on his or her deathbed but was still alive. It would seem that under such circumstances, the astral senses are very much freer from the interference of physical senses and tend to manifest very strongly in the form of appearances to persons in whom the dying person is attached by the ties of affection. Many who read this course have known of cases of this kind, for they are of quite frequent occurrence. The student will notice that in the majority of the cases cited in this chapter, the clairvoyant has been in a state of sleep or semi-sleep, often in a dream condition. But you must not jump to the conclusion that this condition is always necessary for the manifestation of this phenomena. On the contrary, the advanced and well-developed clairvoyants usually assume merely a condition of deep reverie or meditation, shutting out the sounds and thoughts of the physical plane so as to be able to function better on the astral plane. The reason that so many recorded cases have occurred when the clairvoyant person was asleep and the vision appeared as a dream is simply because in such a condition the physical senses of the person are stilled and at rest, and there is less likelihood of interference from them, and a better opportunity for the astral senses to function effectively. It is like the familiar cases in which one becomes so wrapped up in viewing a beautiful work of art or in listening to a beautiful musical rendition that he or she forgets about all the sights and sounds of the world outside. One sometimes gets into the same condition when reading an interesting book or even when witnessing an interesting play. When the psychic powers are concentrated upon any one channel of vision, the others fail to register a clear impression. The same rule holds good on the astral plane as on the physical plane. There are certain psychic conditions which are especially conducive to the manifestation of clairvoyant phenomena, as all students of the subject know very well. These conditions are somewhat hard to induce, at least until the clairvoyant has had considerable experience and practice. But in the state of sleep, the person induces the desired conditions, in many cases, though he is not consciously doing so. As might naturally be expected, therefore, the majority of the recorded cases of clairvoyance have occurred when the clairvoyant person has been asleep. I should also state once more that in many cases in which the clairvoyant has witnessed the appearance of another person, as in the cases which I have just mentioned, there is always the possibility of the person having actually appeared in his astral body, unconsciously to himself, of course. No one but a skilled occultist is able to distinguish between cases of this kind. The line between this class of clairvoyance and astral appearance is very thin, and in fact, the two classes of phenomena shade and blend into each other. In reality, when one gets down to bottom principles, there is very little difference between the actual appearance in the astral body and the strong projection of one's presence by means of will, conscious or unconscious, along the lines of awakening the clairvoyant vision of others. To attempt to explain the slight points of difference here would only involve the student in a mass of technical description, which would tend to confuse rather than to enlighten him. From this, I refrain. All right, there you go. Well, so ends Lesson 10 in Clairvoyance and the Occult by Swami Panchadasi. Well, I hope that you've learned a lot from this. Use the next week to go over the lessons if you are attempting your own clairvoyance experiments. It's pretty cool. I like this. I have had astral sounds of my son calling my name or saying, "Mom, I'm okay," at times when he hasn't been home for a couple hours and I expected him right away. And sometimes I've heard him call my name and I'll go around looking for the house, through the house, and he's not here. And an hour later he'll come home and say, "Oh yeah, I was thinking about you and I wanted you to know I was okay." So every now and then I'll get messages psychically from my son. Tonight I haven't gotten such messages, and one time this happened before where he wasn't home for hours, and in fact he didn't come home till like 7 or 8 in the morning. And he said, "Oh my God, Mom, I fell asleep. They have a spare bedroom and I went and laid down for a minute and they didn't want to wake me and they let me sleep there." So I have a feeling he might have done that today. He might be sick as well. Hopefully not, but I'm going to attempt to astrally go to him right now and make sure he's okay. I'm sure he is, and I've asked his higher self, and I keep getting the guidance he's fine, and I'll tell you what happens tomorrow if he sees me in the room or if I hear his voice. But I love clairvoyance. I love that this is an ability that I've had for a long time, most of my life, but it's gotten stronger as we entered the realm of the fifth dimension. And now that we're fully anchored in, I have a feeling that each and every one of you will be able to go deeper and deeper into your abilities in the psychic and clairvoyant realms. Well, that concludes tonight's episode. I would like for you to send your ghost stories to me at metaphysicalsoulspeak@gmail.com. I am still looking for stories for my Metaphysical Ghost Speak episode that I'll be doing on Halloween. So there it is. I'm asking for that, and also any Christmas miracles, or if you've ever seen Santa Claus. If you think you've witnessed Santa Claus streaking through the sky on a Christmas Eve, I want to hear about it. Also, if you've ever, or your children have ever, written notes to Santa Claus, and even if they weren't mailed, miraculously what they asked for came to pass. These are extremely cool stories that I know exist out there. Some of them have happened to me, and I'm going to tell you about them on Christmas Eve. So I'm hoping that I could get also your stories to share with the group. The group being all of my listeners. And speaking of listeners, thank you guys for continuing to share this among your Facebook groups, your psychic groups, ascension groups, UFO groups, ET groups, whatever groups you're part of. Thank you for continuing to spread the message on Facebook as well as Twitter and Instagram and all of the others. I am so grateful because I know that this show is growing. I can see it in the reflection of the numbers, And I'm really glad about it because we're trying to bring all of us together, all of us like-minded souls, our kindred spirits, and our hashtag soul family, hashtag soul tribe. In fact, if you look up those hashtags, that's how you're going to find me on Twitter. I am Mermaid Girl 888 on both Twitter and Instagram, in case you're looking for me in those places. So that's it for now. That's it for tonight. I'm so tired, you guys. I am doing my best to stay awake, and I'm going to go back to sleep and hopefully dream beautiful dreams and get rid of the yucky stuff I don't need anymore, and wake up tomorrow in a perfectly healthy state of mind and body so that I could go visit my friend and hopefully we could go eat some of those tacos we've been talking about for a few days. All right, that's all I got to say about that. I love you guys, each and every one of you. You are all special, and don't forget, you're here for a reason. You have to stay until the fat lady sings. Well, probably there's not going to be a fat lady, but there probably will be some singing. Hopefully it's you in a state of joy and happiness. But right now, well, tomorrow I will be back with all new, original, and unique programming, just like always. But now I am signing off with peace and joy and the high vibes of the holy fifth dimension in which we are fully anchored now. Yes, we did it. Until next time, guys, peace. Do you ever wish you could look into the next chapter in your book of life and see what's coming next? What does the universe have in store for you? I can help you with that. I will give you a Celtic cross reading, which is 10 cards, or you can ask me 3 questions, and I use 3 cards per question. So that's 9 cards, or I can channel your higher guidance, or maybe God directly for you. Maybe you want to talk to your dear departed Aunt Edna, because maybe you have a few questions and she was the smartest person you knew. If your deceased relatives are available or your ascended masters, I can channel them for you personally. Let me have 1 hour to show you the future in your next chapter of your book of life. Readings are $75, and it takes me an hour to an hour and a half to complete. And for this price, you will also be hooked up to the healing grid around the planet for free, which means yours truly, me, I will be giving you Reiki 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the rest of your life. All you have to do is let me know. metaphysicalsoulspeak@gmail.com, and we will explore your future together.